I think it's fundamentally reframing that no one is a homeless person. Homelessness doesn't define someone. It's a situation or a circumstance that someone can get out of, the right level of support, care, opportunity. That's what it takes. Hopefully what people can take away, or listeners, is you can embed purpose, and you can, it doesn't have to be this kind of change world overnight sort of grand scheme, big vision. There are little things that everyone can do sort of in their everyday lives, and through business that can actually benefit others. So I guess hopefully we can kind of unpack what are some of those little things everyone can do to sort of make your day more purposeful, and your work.
Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden. They're about to see us shine, cause we're golden. They can never break us down, cause we're golden. They're about to see us glow, cause we're golden.
Hey guys, just before we head into the episode, if you have been enjoying the podcast, please make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're using, whether you're using Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever it is that you're using. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out a lot. It obviously means more people will be able to see and trust our content. It also means that you'll get that content every week, and we really do appreciate all the support, all the shares, all the likes, all the comments, all the messages that we get. It does help us and spurs us on to keep providing more value and deliver quality content to you guys. So a massive thank you. Nick and Marcus, welcome to the podcast.
Cheers, thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Been excited about this one for quite a long time. We started conversation over the net. You guys would have been speaking with Olivia, and I'm excited because this is the first not-for-profit that's been on the podcast, and also what you guys do is just simply amazing. So really exciting. But where we might start is I might get you guys to tell us a little bit about Homie and what you guys do, and we can kind of talk some details around that, and then we'll jump into the journey as well. How did it start? How did it all come about?
Awesome. I guess to sort of summarise, so we're an organisation that supports young people affected by homelessness or hardship with skills, confidence and experiences around sort of work readiness and I guess general preparedness for their futures. What does that look like in practice? So we've also got obviously a fashion label, and we're streetwear clothing. I guess the term people use is a social enterprise these days, but we talk about just being a business with purpose. Mm-hmm. We use all the profits from our sales to run some really important programs for young people. One in particular is a retail training and employment program for young people between the ages of 16 and 25, which is an 8-month paid internship in retail and fashion. So that's kind of us in short, but obviously there's a lot to unpack within that. And then I guess I work in sort of a CEO capacity, and Marcus works as creative director. So we've got a good complementary sort of fashion and sort of business. Well, I mean, not like I have that background, but I've been learning through doing. So yeah. I guess we complement each other pretty well.
I think that's obviously the best way to do it, right? Yeah. Get in there.
Totally. I'll just add the other social impact to the business is we have a VIP day once a month where we close the store and invite a youth homelessness service into the shop with 20 to 30 of their clients. Mm-hmm. And on that day, they can select 5 free items of brand new clothing. We have hairdressers there on the day, makeup artists, food, coffee, all that sort of stuff. And that's a real introduction into Homie. And we often have our alumni from our program there on that day serving the young people and, starting that conversation, because, they were there, they might have been there 6 or 12 months prior and saying like, I was here, I come through this VIP day, I went through this program and now I'm working at this place, or I live here. So yeah, they're real introductory into Homie, and we do that once a month. And I think we've given away over 5,000 items of brand new clothing and had over 1,700 young people come through on those days, and they're just a real pick me up, confidence booster. And yeah, we've had some really good results and stories, people feeling confident to go to school or go down to the shops and, feeling confident in their own skin, because it's not often people in this situation are afforded the choice, of brand new clothing and stuff that they actually like. It's usually, might be, secondhand or, not the right size or whatever. So yeah, those days are really a pivotal part of the business as well.
Yeah, I think that's super powerful straight off the get-go. I mean, even me just sitting here now, like, I'm actually quite astonished at that, if that makes sense. Like it's, I mean, the impact that you guys would be having on individuals, but even just, Melbourne as a whole. And I think that often gets lost. And even from a business owner's perspective, I said that we do a bit of work or have done previously. And I think you can get a lot of perspective, especially as a business owner. Like, we were talking before, the problems that you have as a business owner, they don't really, like, what are they in the grand scheme of things? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And I think that's the amazing thing about what you guys are doing. And you'd also get to see it firsthand with what you guys do. But I guess that's a bit of a perspective shift, even just for the listeners now. Like, a lot of people that will listen to this are more than likely business owners. But I think, and I hope that as we kind of flow through this conversation, that people get something out of this other than just trying to grow a business, right? That there are people, and we've said this on the show before, but we all come from different backgrounds. We, some of us are luckier than others, and that's really what it is. When you're born in the world, it's luck.
Yeah.
100%.
Exactly. And I think hopefully what people can take away, or listeners, is like you can embed purpose, and you can, it doesn't have to be this kind of change world overnight sort of grand scheme, big vision. There are little things that everyone can do sort of in their everyday lives, and through business that can actually benefit others. So I guess hopefully we can kind of unpack what are some of those little things everyone can do to sort of make your day more purposeful and your work.
This is I'm very excited for this.
Pleasure to be here.
I am.
Glad you are.
I think, as I said, I just think it's going. I think what you, and I know I kind of sounding like a fanboy here a little bit, right? But I just think it's super powerful. All right, so let's go back to the start now. How did Homie begin? And kind of what's the backstory?
Maybe we usually, it's funny,
Just
we said it a few times. It's funny, I always sort of take us away and then Marcus sort of finishes us off. But well, I guess, we're one of, or two of sort of, an amazing team now, but there was a few of us from the start who sort of, got together. And Marcus and I actually met on a fundraising bicycle ride in 2013. So we did this sort of, push bike ride from Vietnam to Cambodia, raising sort of funds and awareness for anti-child trafficking. But I guess what we loved about that was a couple of things, like we'd have a few beers after the ride each day, and it was lovely after a hard day on the bike. But I guess we built a friendship over that as well. But from a purpose angle, it was for one school in a really remote region of Cambodia, and we really loved that it kind of wasn't this sort of large conglomerate that we didn't have that traceability of kind of what are we actually doing, what is the impact, and I guess the most important principle from all of that was that what we decided to do was there were so many things with the funds that we'd raised. It was probably about 40K in the end. It could have gone to sort of textbooks, resources, uniforms, etc. But one of the interesting sort of insights that came to us was that often in these communities, the quality teachers are poached out of the schools because it's a very rural area. The standard of living isn't as good as obviously if you're in inner city, and obviously they can provide a greater livelihood as such for teachers. So we're losing this talent in this rural community, and obviously without a teacher, there's no school. And then if children aren't engaged in education, they're vulnerable, obviously out playing in the fields or whatever it may be, and there's not that pathway out of that sort of cycle. So we kind of really loved that. It was like, well, let's get some teachers in here. So we sponsored some teachers was kind of what the funds went towards. And I guess it was kind of, a bit of an aha moment or a light bulb around there are so many things you can do, but what's the best thing you can do? Where are you best placed to actually make the biggest or the most impact that you can? So that was kind of a bit of an insight for us that sort of, I guess, informed for, we want to do something back home, but let's make sure it's really logical and it's going to really complement what already exists and is the best thing that we can do with what we have. So we came back to obviously Melbourne. We both live here. I mean, Marcus is from Colac and I'm from Blackburn, Box Hill. But I was studying communications at RMIT in the city, and Marcus is working at General Pants, one of those annoying customer service people. And anyway, no, we used to sort of get together during our lunch breaks, and then Marcus sort of came to me one day and said, I've got an idea. What if we just go and speak to someone who's living rough and just kind of, hear their story and, just try and capture it. And it was a really profound experience. I guess we decided to just go and chat to this fella who was sitting on the streets near Melbourne Central, and we were both pretty nervous, obviously, for, I guess, obvious reasons initially, but then those completely washed away when we actually had a conversation, because I think that was all fueled by the anxiety, the stigma and the stereotypes towards someone who was experiencing homelessness. And then by having that conversation, it just really changed everything, you know, in terms of, for us, we saw it that it wasn't a homeless person, it was a person experiencing homelessness, you know. And I guess I was particularly taken because the person we spoke to actually had gone to my school. They were a lot older than me, obviously. They were a fair bit older, but there were still some teachers that we both knew. And I guess that was really confronting, you know, private boys' school in Melbourne and all that kind of stuff. And you go, well, how does this happen? How can someone end up, you know, experiencing homelessness on the streets? And unfortunately, they passed away, and we went to their funeral. And, you know, it was really sad, I guess. But it kind of just, for us, resonated that homelessness doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone. And we decided, I guess at that point in time, with our sort of respective skill set, like Marcus is a really handy photographer, and I was sort of doing some, you know, journalism. So we decided to create like an online platform, and it was essentially like we emulated almost that Humans New York experience, but it was called Homelessness of Melbourne. And we were sharing the stories of these people who were initially living rough, with their consent and in their own words, to try and challenge the stigmas and the stereotypes and the preconceived notions towards homelessness. So that was quite powerful. It got a really organic sort of base of supporters, and it's at its peak, I think we were reaching sort of almost, you know, 500,000 people. So it was a really cool start.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was very sort of unprecedented, and just sort of, you know, every week then we'd start sort of plotting. We'll go and speak to this person, and then there was a lot of feedback coming through the page. People saying, "Oh, it's been so lovely." Like I went and spoke to Jeff today because I walked past them for the full year, but I've never felt comfortable. But I saw on their profile that they love this musician, and I love them too. And we had a chat, and it was really cool, and it was just so different to what I thought. And that was really awesome to see that we were kind of brokering these conversations, and people were actually seeing them for who they are, which was a person. So then a lot of feedback came through from people saying, well, what else can we do? You know, what more is there that we can, you know, do? We've spoken to them, and we had this sort of captive audience. So the next step for us was, I don't know, just try and create an event or just do something with the momentum that we had. So this is where I usually throw to Marcus to talk through the next phase. But look, really intuitive. Like, you know, obviously the biggest thing that's fueled this was curiosity. And I think at every point we've just kind of tried something, you know, refined it, tried something else. It's just been very iterative. So I guess I'll let you talk about the pop-up.
Yeah. So it was back in December 20th in 2014, we held Australia's first street store, and that was an initiative that started in South Africa. And I was just tagged in a video of that from a friend online. He's like, look at this. And what it was just a pop-up store where people would come down and donate a piece of clothing that they wanted to pass on to someone in need. And, you know, we were like, oh, you know, everyone's saying, you know, how can I donate clothing, donate food, blankets and that sort of thing. So we held that event in Fed Square back in close to Christmas, and we just got truckloads of people coming down and clothing, you know, people coming down, hanging up on the temporary fencing that we set up in this little pop-up space. And then we, you know, invited a few services to come down with their clients and, you know, people that we'd met along the journey so far. And it was just an overwhelming response, you know, and from that we were thinking, you know, how can we do this more permanently? And we learned a few lessons from that day as well. And from that sort of media coverage we got from that, Melbourne Central approached us about doing a pop-up in their space for 4 weeks, where we kind of emulated that experience, but in a more closed environment. It was more private. So we ran that pop-up shop for a month where we had clothing donations from various brands. Nick was babysitting at the time and knew a family at Target, and we got some fittings and fixtures, and because we just took this pop-up and had nothing, no clothing.
We said yes before.
Brilliant. Always the way.
No racks.
No infrastructure.
No nothing. and no idea, pretty much. So we just said yes, and we were passionate about it, and we knew what we wanted to do. So we just made it happen. And we did that for 4 weeks, where the public could come in and buy an item of clothing, and we would donate one. It was a 1-for-1 model. And at the end of the month, we had the big issue vendors come through, and that was our first VIP day. And they collected, shopped all the clothing that was donated on that day. And then we just kept getting extended at Melbourne Central. We were moved around to 4 or 5 different locations within that year, and some was 150 square meters, and then there was a 3x3 box. So it was a bit of a challenging year, and we couldn't really get stable and put our roots in the ground anywhere. So we found a place on Brunswick Street, and we just had a general feel that out in the community, away from like a shopping centre, was sort of more the vibe of
brand.
Yeah, more for
We just
us.
said yes again before having the. I think we committed to a lease with literally scrambling for the down payment, and then look, it was quite cavalier, but very fortunate. I think Marcus' intuition and also just some of our staff kind of having a lot of confidence in that particular area, just saying, look, it's a really great community, very progressive area, and it was an awesome move. It was sort of the best thing we did was to branch out and have our own sort of base that we created. So yes, it was quite bold, but I guess the VIP days, they kind of evolved over time, and we started to have a lot of young people come through. So sort of like those youth-specific services, and there was all this great feedback coming through from the young people. Loved the garments, had an awesome day, but also, hey, I'm wondering, like, is there an opportunity to work here or do some volunteer work? I find it really hard to get a job. No one will give me a go because they've just got these ideas of who I am, which I'm not. I haven't got any references, nothing on my resume, so it was really unfortunate to hear. And I guess sort of it was again a light bulb moment where we're like, well, great, we need staff, we need people. And initially this is a voluntary operation for, when we first started, around sort of 6 to 12 months, and then it evolved into sort of paid casual work. And then obviously as the business has grown as well, it sort of evolved into what is now this sort of, I guess what we call our North Star, and it's this retail training and employment program called the Pathway Alliance. So we've got some incredible people who work for us who deliver that. And essentially, it's a 6-month paid retail training and employment program, but there's there's an entry point month and an exit point month. So it's 8 months of guaranteed paid work, delivering a Cert 3 in retail operations in conjunction with local RTO. And also working with some big brands, such as Champion and Nike, some really cool aspirational brands where we have, these young people, around a dozen per sort of calendar year in that cycle. It's a minimum of 16 hours of paid work a week. 4 hours of that is sort of paid study, and we've kind of co-designed the curriculum. So it's, really progressive, kind of engaging material. And then a minimum of sort of 12 hours, on the shop floor. But workplaces can extend that absolutely as well, which is fantastic. And there's flexibility there. So I guess it's just sort of for the cohort that we're working with, these are like aspirational places in terms of like, never thought I'd be working on the shop floor at a brand like this. And I've worn these garments my whole life, and now I'm actually behind the counter is really surreal. So the program itself is it's there's some fundamental, tangible kind of takeaways, accreditation, etc. But bigger than anything is sort of the confidence and the interpersonal skill development and the soft skills and all the rest of it. So essentially we're getting people sort of work ready. Retail is just a wonderful conduit, or hospitality, those industries. Most of us begin our professional lives working there. Retail is the biggest employer of young people in the country, and youth homelessness is the most represented group of people experiencing homelessness. So maybe just put some shape around kind of why do we focus on young people. I guess I hark back to kind of that experience when we were over in Vietnam, Cambodia. It was kind of like, well, where are we best placed to make an impact? And I guess, we started by speaking to people who were living rough. And then that evolved into kind of learning more in just reading, census and sort of what are the stats and what are the leading contributing factors. And, for instance, I think the most recent census says that less than 5% of homelessness is a direct result of drugs and alcohol. But most people think that's what it is. So it's actually highly stigmatised, unfortunately. Mainstream
it is. And I put my hand up. We would all have experienced it at some point, you know what I mean, in terms of the judgment that can happen naturally as a human.
Us too. So I think that's the thing is like, we're not perfect by any means, and those are the assumptions that we'd made. But by actually looking at, the information that's available, it became very apparent that this issue was just, it was ugly not because of the issue itself, but because of how it was portrayed. And it was so stigmatized, and the stereotypes are just so unwarranted. So we got really passionate about that. It was like the brand, and we'll talk about that as well, the mechanism to start the conversation to kind of change those attitudes, because they are really unfounded and unwarranted. So some shape around homelessness. So I think on any given night in Australia, there's around 120,000 people experiencing homelessness, according to the most recent census. So MCG, full capacity plus grand final day, but various shapes and forms, right? So I think there's only around sort of 7,000 or so who live rough. So most homelessness is not on the streets. It's actually people couch surfing, sleeping in cars, refuges, temporary accommodation. And over 60% of that 120,000 is people who are 35 and under. I think it's
Wow,
40% now.
that's huge.
It's
35%.
So
60%.
60%
35 and under?
Yeah, correct. So most homelessness is young people, right? Like that's the biggest thing that I think, again, there's a stereotype that's the elderly person with the grey hair and beard, but the reality is it's young people. And that's something that we're really passionate about to advocating for and trying to change the face of homelessness so people actually understand, what it is and where we're best placed to make that impact, because ultimately, what we're trying to do is provide these alternative pathways out of homelessness and prevent it from becoming a chronic issue. So that's kind of, I guess, where we also got a bit of fire in the belly, was like, we just kind of just can't believe, we had these sort of, ideas, and if we do, then so many other people do as well. So that became a really critical part of our mission as well, is trying to actually start the right conversation around this and empower people to understand what can you do to make a difference. So we kind of rectified, we can't do everything for everyone, but we can do something for someone. And youth homelessness for us, it's, we are a sort of a youth-friendly kind of brand and aesthetic. And it's the best place that we can actually make the difference, because we can prevent homelessness from becoming a chronic issue and someone ending up living rough on the streets. So that was really important in terms of the logic and the mechanism of how do we approach this. It's a prevention-based model, which is we're really passionate about, because that's where the vast majority of it actually exists, and where we need to be focusing and talking about.
Yeah. So this is probably more a business-related question, but how much do you think, and obviously in contextualizing it for the listeners, but how much do you think your passion for this idea fueled you guys to take those risks? Because you did take risks early on, yeah? And it's funny because I feel like you could have this conversation with most business owners, and they're like, there's similar stories that go around. But how much do you think, because you guys obviously found something that you're extremely passionate about, and it also is something that is bigger than you as individuals, right? And I feel like, because what fueled me to do this was, Pivotal Conversations is the network, and we want to have, I think conversations are life-changing. I think we can all look back at one conversation and say that changed the trajectory of my life completely. And then, the whole idea was like, okay, what are the conversations that really push the needle forward for people and help them progress, right? Yeah. And it's all about, how do we build character? How do we build wealth? And how do we start to improve our careers and progress as individuals from a career and equity standpoint? And that was an idea I had that was bigger than me, and it was like, cool, we want to do this now. So how much do you think that factored in to you taking those risks and really kind of driving forward? Yeah,
well, I'd say probably 100%.
Yeah,
99%.
Back to that shop lease on Brunswick Street. No normal person with any sort of business now would have taken up that lease with the situation that we're in, I'd say. So, we were strongly, passionate about what we were doing, and sort of had blinkers on as such. But, it's sort of a risk that sort of has paid off in the end. And I think when you are in that situation and you don't have the fear as such, that's when some really cool shit happens, and that's when you can make make change. And along the years we've become like a lot more risk averse, and we've changed a lot because you understand what happens in business during that 5-year or 7-year period. So a lot's happened, and we know like what could go wrong. But back then, we were all guns blazing, just passionate about what we were doing, and we didn't know like the outcomes of, if it could go wrong, what might happen. So
we only had everything to gain, nothing to lose,
Yeah.
It's now just balancing passion and logic is the biggest thing. It's like just ensuring that you've got the right idea, but you sense check it and that's feasible. So that's like a key takeaway, I think, for listeners in terms of like doing something purposeful and I think the great thing is if listeners are from, that business background is they've got that pedigree. So it's kind of like, a really great way around embedding purpose is about balancing the two to make sure that you can sense check the ideas and they actually are feasible in terms of how do they play out. So I think that's good. It's like actually everyone can do it, and you're almost at an advantage if you are already running a successful operation. You can interject things versus us trying to sort of raise these two elements at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing that I found interesting, which I'm starting to like recognize in terms of business is building community first and then developing product second, in a sense. Like I feel like I know that's what we're trying to do, and I would, from what I can tell, that's what you guys did as well. You obviously had an idea that you're really passionate about, but the first thing you did was started building community, and then you kind of thought, okay, well, how do we build a product, to sell to this community, and obviously in your case to create that impact and obviously generate or increase the impact. Is that something that you guys see as extremely important in your own success and something that you would recommend to your founders out there?
Yeah, 100%. Like we built up that community of people that were really cared about the issue, and through the Facebook page and following along the journey of, the pop-up store and so yeah, if it wasn't for that, like when we came to introduce, product, it wouldn't have worked. There would be no one there to support it, but also, getting our friends and families involved and try to create something that they would want to share and talk about. And, that's sort of how we found that like the product would work, and like we'd created something that could spark a conversation. And so that's sort of how the product sort of came organically. It was never planned. We never started off this by saying, let's have a streetwear brand or let's have a shop on Brunswick Street. It sort of organically evolved when we had the store and we put our logo on some shirts, and more people gravitated to that because they wanted to support what we were doing because it had this identity, rather than samples and seconds from other brands. So that's how the clothing brand sort of organically grew. We're like, if people want to support us this way, well, why don't we expand the range? Why don't we, provide more of an offering so people can really support us? And, it's not only financially, but them going out, wearing it, creating these conversations and talking about what we're doing is going to have a huge impact on the situation. So, yeah, it really grew, and it was because of that initial community. And I'd recommend having a strong base when trying to launch something, for sure.
So the other thing that I've always wondered is like structurally, the business structure, and how does that differ? And I'd love for you guys to talk about, because I feel like there might be people out there that have similar ideas, right? And they go, I'd love to make this impact, but is it actually financially feasible? Like, what kind of risk am I taking? What's the difference in structure? Can I actually self-actualize myself while doing this and obviously being able to give back? Because I feel like that is something, I know it was a fear of mine, at some points in terms of, having similar ideas. So I'd love for you guys to talk about, I guess, the structure of a, not-for-profit and how that factors in.
I guess it depends on how you view yourself, like in terms of how you want to treat it as well. We've just got an A380 coming over us. But I think it's really about how you view yourself, right? And like what we've been doing ultimately more recently is going into businesses like mainstream businesses and helping them embed purpose. So like by actually having, as I say, that sort of pedigree already established, like a sound business model, with strong trading record, with insights into sort of variables and all that kind of stuff that can happen in their markets. That's all gold in terms of you've already half got it made, really.
Yep.
Like I think our structure is Yeah, like I said, we talk about we're a business with purpose. So we definitely have the commercial arm and entity, which is really about trying to build the business and the community, and get to that point of sort of sustainability and relative scalability in terms of, and we can talk about sort of our future, but we know there's almost a critical mass in terms of when our quality will compromise on our program delivery, and that's where we're going to go. Well, that's the perfect size for this. But we have an impact department, which is highly talented group of people and personnel that I guess facilitate those activities. So we have in-house youth workers. We've got, and it just depends on what you're kind of trying to do, right? And who's your stakeholder? So ours is providing this program offering to these young people, this retail training and employment program. Yeah. So so we've got this team of people that highly talented, highly skilled, and there's a skilled workforce in this sector as well. And it's I guess for us as well, one of the biggest challenges is attracting and retaining talent, like any business goes through, but certainly, it's a bit of a pressure cooker being in a sort of startup to sort of growing entity, whilst also managing the pressures of also having to work with, an issue that, you're still learning as you're doing as well. So, we kind of have these, departments that are quite interconnected, and like they can't exist without one another, right? And that's the other thing, is in terms of the level of importance and the weighting you give. So like we fundamentally are a business of purpose. It's not about we make a bottom line. The bottom line is for the purpose. So they really hold one another up, and that's just how we have to treat it, right? It's like without any profit, there's no purpose. So that's like a fundamental in terms of being able to actually deliver. So, you have to make sure that you've got that commercial acumen and that your business is growing, or stable is really important. But then, as I say, kind of making sure that the activities speak to one another. And our unique selling point is that when you buy something from us, it does something. You know what I mean? It's like you get something, but it does something. And if we don't have that, then we're just another brand, in the ether of what is, there are some incredible brands that, just exist on their own right, obviously. So we need that to kind of be able to make sure we're ahead of the game. We have that unique selling point, because that's a massive conversion tool. But we also frame it in the right way. It's not that, and this is, language is so important. Our program is working with young people affected by homelessness or hardship. It's their language. It's not, hey, when you buy this T-shirt, you're giving a kid a chance to get off the streets. That's just not how it works. Like the kids or the young people we work with, come from a myriad of different backgrounds. Some are in temporary housing, some are in overcrowded dwellings. It's just really important that language is empowering. And these are, as I say, young people who are affected by this issue. It doesn't define them. So that's like an equal part important to our mission, is how we talk about the work that we do. Because it's about respect and dignity. So that was like the VIP days is very much about, it's a dignified shopping experience, but also people that we work with is making sure that we set them up for success as well. And that stigma they can leave behind at the door when they come to work, and when they leave work as well, is super important.
Yeah, amazing. And then so just so that for the listeners at home, so that like you're basically building, it's like building any other company. You have your different departments and so on, but all the profits that are made obviously go towards the making the impact and the programs and these kind of things. That's
right. So like we're a registered charity, and we also have like that DGR status, which means that we can offer tax deductions when people make donations to us, etc. But any profit that we make, it's stipulated in our constitution, is that 100% of the profits must support people who are affected by poverty, destitution, etc. That's kind of like the legal definition. But we have a board of directors as well, obviously, chair. I preside on that as the CEO reporting sort of mechanism from management to board, and it's great. The accountability is there. So in terms of like a share or equity, no one has equity in the organisation. So from a board member perspective, you've got nothing to gain bar the amazing, opportunity to make a real difference and to have that purpose, etc. But you do have everything to lose in terms of liability, right? Like it just, that accountability is there, which is really important. So it's actually a really great sound model, because it ensures that you're getting the right people there, because there's absolute clarity on kind of what's at stake here. And we can't get it wrong, because we're working with young people's lives, and it's a critical time for them as well. So we just have to make sure that we nail that process.
Wow. It's actually amazing. I know I've said this a few times now, but it's crazy to think.
Oh, thanks, mate. I appreciate the
Do you
sentiments.
guys? So like, what kind of advice would you give to, say, other founders, who may want to, I guess, make an impact too, right? Like, because I feel like there's, like, it can be done, and I feel like a lot of people would have that fear around it. So like, what kind of advice would you give founders potentially around being able to, maybe it's not necessarily becoming a non-for-profit, but maybe it's like, allocating 1% to maybe a charity or something like that. Like, what kind of advice would you give to them, people who might, be struggling to kind of take that step?
You said it can be done. I think the thing for us is like, it's not as hard as you think it is. There's so much anxiety like around, like, just like, where do you start and what do you do? And I think the biggest thing is like canvassing your people. What's important to them? What gets them out of bed? What are they supporting outside of work? If you can embed that into the workplace, you're going to have a much more motivated workplace as well. In terms of, again, talent acquisition and retention, that is such an amazing tool to be able to have in your arsenal, to give people an extra reason to get up, so we're not, solely fueled by our bottom line. So I guess that's my biggest thing, is like, you got to find what your people are passionate and care about. And then you got to think about, like, where can you support within that? So I talk about, like, we don't do it all, right? As I say, it's too overwhelming. There are so many issues in the world.
Yeah,
it's,
of course.
It's depressing when you think about it, and it's overwhelming. You're like, it's just, where can you make an impact? And we always talk about, you can't do everything for everyone. You can do something for someone, and think about what can your something for someone be. And we always talk about that, we're a critical piece of the puzzle. So we don't do it all. So we collaborate, and that's the biggest thing as well, is bringing in parties and resources where everyone can be playing to their strengths and in their lanes. So the beauty of our model is that we work with some incredible support agencies, providing housing, access to mental health care, all those things that we're just not equipped to do, right? But what we can do, we know, is that we can provide a real experience in a supportive environment, empathetic employment approach. That's our niche, and we can provide, a cool brand to associate with, and that's what we can do. So kind of taking what are you doing already, and how can you harness it to provide and, complement, something that may already be existing. We also then work with these mainstream businesses, and, they're providing these incredible opportunities in, these workplaces as well. But everyone kind of plays to their strengths. So we have we're that sort of conduit in the middle. And for instance, like, if there was something that happened in the workplace at an external provider, we have the infrastructure to be able to go, they're not carrying that. They can, phone call away, hey, this might have happened. This is all hypothetical, obviously. And then we can make sure that there is that sort of collaborative approach and that support that is comprehensive. So, like, that's the biggest thing, is like, you can actually, working with others can be such a joyful exercise, especially when it is for others as well. And I guess that's the approach that we've taken, is like, what are we good at? What can we nail? And where are our gaps? And who can we bring in to make sure that we can deliver a quality outcome for someone? So collaborative spirit is massive as well. But also, as I say, not trying to like tackle something in its entirety. Like, just think about, like, what, again, canvassing your people, what's important to them, and then what can we do with the resources that we have? And if you're already running a sound business model, there are so many things you can do, right? As you say, it might be allocating a portion of your bottom line, etc. But I'd really encourage people to make sure that, like, it's fulfilling for their people and themselves, because that's what's going to continue to make sure that it isn't just a fad and like we do it for 1 year, or we do a fundraiser and that's it. It's making sure that you can embed it into the everyday life, because if that's in the psyche of your people, and they know, they're going to do extra for you. If it's not going to be a chore. So I think it's a great way to get the best out of people as well.
100%.
Yeah, just using people's skills as well. Like, there's no point, a marketing crew coming into our warehouse and folding shirts for a day, but if they can, provide their expertise and experience in, helping us with a campaign or something, that, that's where they can really have the most impact. And I feel like there's, people think that volunteering is, going and doing something, but it's not usually what they would do normally. And it doesn't provide as much value for the people they're trying to help. So I think it's using people's skills, and pairing them up with people who need that expertise, and then also just having a go, and having a crack at it, because we started out, it was just a Facebook page, and it's evolved and changed so much, over the 6-7 years, and we're like nowhere near where we thought it would be. And you never know who you might meet, what you might come across. Things change, you'll make mistakes, but if you don't have a go, you'll never know where you might end up.
So if I trace our journey, it was like, feeding your curiosity. There's obviously a passion element, but then it's balancing the passion and logic. Those are sort of some simple principles that people can take. To start. Yeah.
I really love the idea around the value creation that you just mentioned. Like, it almost is similar to Stigma, where it's like there's only one way you can help, and it's like you got to go volunteer, you got to go do this. But it's like companies can actually go ahead and if you think about value creation and really what you're trying to do in any business is you're trying to create as much value as possible.
That's right.
It is from leveraging those kind of skills and getting your people in, cohesion amongst, a certain set of people with a certain set of skills, and then kind of going all in on that thing. So I think that's very interesting. I've never really thought it about that way, and it kind of sparks some ideas for me as well. All right, so I want to go back to the start then, and let's kind of talk about maybe like the first 4 years and what was some, because you guys are growing a business. Like, as much as we're saying, impact, there's also a business side behind the scenes where you're like, well, hang on, like we have to get this right in order to make this impact. So what were some of the things you guys did early on that you kind of look back now and go, that was really pivotal to the business growing and to kind of getting this thing to, if we were to look back and go, what were the 3 or 4 things that you guys did that really helped you grow?
I think the biggest one, like, to start building a community, and this is such a simple thing, like, little sort of cheat sheet was we just got anyone and everyone who had a Facebook page that was comfortable with us accessing, invited their friends to our page or our Instagram, whatever it was, and you just built that because that's that strength of that referral. So, like, put some music on and you literally got 5 different laptops going and you're just clicking the whole time. Like, that actually got, community, because you start a Facebook page, looks sad when it's like 51 people like this. But it was such a good way to actually just get, a good following, because we had that strength of, sort of referability, and, that was kind of a little cheeky sort of ploy that, got an initial following, and then obviously the organic came and people saw that and was already X amount of followers, so I'm more inclined to click like and to follow, etc. I think the content was like so important in terms of, like, from the outset, making sure that people really understood what this was about. And, we didn't really lean into the impact lens, and like, when you get something from us, this is what is happening, and we capture that content again in a dignified manner. But, we were able to have videographers and the works capture, again, sort of with the consents and in the appropriate way, some amazing content to feed through to our consumer, to show them that this is what happened today as a result of you coming and supporting us last week or last month. And I think those things, have been just critical to mission success, or relative success. It's still growing. Also, putting sound heads around us in terms of, as I say, Marcus spoke to, like, that skilled volunteering, or identifying what our strengths were and where the opportunities for growth and development were, and making sure we had the right counsel. So, establishing a board of directors, like, okay, what kind of operation are we running? We're running a commercial entity. We've also got this impact lens. So, okay, we're going to need a lawyer. We're going to need a finance person. We're going to need someone who's got a background in retail, someone who's worked with young people and has that extensive experience, someone who's got a not-for-profit background. So, forming that kind of, table was also super important to make sure that we had those kind of checks and balances and mechanisms to compensate for those lines.
Sense, isn't it? Yeah.
And obviously, I'm a lot more like that. Mark's a lot more with the ideas, and I think it's just good ideas as well. And being a bit bold and brazen in terms of just putting some things out there. And the beauty of us having the pop-up shop and us actually being able to work there for a period of time was the real-time feedback as well. Was us being able to actually engage and to get that sort of real feedback from a customer about what are they actually really valuing from what's happening here.
That's such a powerful thing that's so underutilized in business, I reckon, that just real-time feedback, kind of, instead of trying to throw a Hail Mary and get it all right at once, it's kind of like, no, let's just put something out, get a little bit of feedback, see how it works, and then kind of make these kind of continuous optimizations to the product or the brand or the marketing or whatever. And like, because you feel like you have to get it right. And, when you start a business, you're like, oh, if we don't get this right, and that can kind of feed into this, as I said, that long Hail Mary shot that everybody's going for.
That's right, and I think like the sustainability end as well is like you got to be in a good place yourself, somewhat. Like as you know, it's business is stressful, life is hard at times, and I think that was something also like we've been learning through doing is finding the balance of like because it's something that we are really passionate about, but you've also got other priorities outside of work and just making sure everything is sort of synchronized there and. We talk about that almost oxygen mask example you hear about on a plane. You've got to put it on yourself before you put it on others, and that's the most important thing. The way we go about doing our work is making sure that you're actually in a place where you can perform. So I think those are sort of some of the insights. I guess also like growing the business and from a commercial perspective. We as you say, there was a bit of cavalier sort of behaviour in terms of just having a crack at things and not worrying about what might not happen, but actually thinking about what might happen if that is the case. And it's amazing if you just sort of like the more you talk about it with people and make the noise, like you'll find your people as well. Like I think we hosted a lot of kind of community events and like some block parties with our store, and that was awesome. Like I think that was a moment where it really encapsulated our brand. We're like, yes, this is it. We need to be doing more of this because we had these amazing days where we had everyone in the back alley of our store, on a stinking hot sort of summer's day, but everyone wearing the dad cap and awesome music, and it was just a really good vibe. And I think you sort of that again was a moment where it's just like, okay, let's emulate and replicate these. Like these are the breadwinners for us. I think doubling down on a couple of those things as well, but you got to experiment to find out what they may be.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that comes back to community building as well. And as a brand, partnering with, artists and other local brands and doing collaborations, it's all part of that community building and exposure and getting the word out there. And, even through the clothing, having subtle messaging of the issue as well. So we try to, our tagline's a label for the streets, and, we've had, stuff done by artists like finding space for those out of place and plays on words that really sort of make people stop and think as well. And so that's a huge part of it. And that community building is so key. And we're always looking for ways that we can get involved more with local people, really.
Amazing and then so I guess factoring, kind of moving forward a little bit then, like what are some of the challenges that you guys face, or I guess some of the lessons that you've learned around actually getting past that startup phase and kind of entering where you start to grow and you get to this point and now you're like, okay, well, the dynamic's starting to change a little bit now. We're not just kind of running and gunning. It's kind of like we're starting to build structure. Like what were some of the biggest lessons that you guys learned around that?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, again, I think it's like balancing like the passion and logic is like some things, sound amazing on paper, but then obviously us having to sort of sense check them and sort of feel them out and making sure that they actually can be executed and do them well is definitely something I think we're still kind of just exploring. As I say, like I was sort of alluding to prior, was that, there's sort of like a critical mass, I think, or like a beautiful constraint in terms of, for us, like we've got a really quality operation happening in terms of our impact as well. Like the results that we're able to yield, are far above market, and not-for-profit market in terms of people exiting programs and being in stable housing and work, etc. But that comes back to the quality and the intensity of the program. Like we work with a small group of people, but in a really intensive, considered, collaborative manner, and that yields the results. So kind of also being proud of that and not kind of shying away from it's a dozen young people per calendar year, but that's essentially a dozen young people who will most likely not revert back into that cycle, or if they do, are so far better equipped to be able to get themselves out of it off their own volition versus needing external support as well. So I think also just like being proud of kind of, the work is something that we've also kind of remedied and rectifying versus kind of we've always got to do more and it's got to be bigger and it's got to be this. Like it doesn't actually have to be. It's about making sure that quality's the most important thing, because if you're not doing quality, what's the point? Like we could do 120 people and do something for them, but it's not going to change their lives. And like that's what it's about in terms of getting someone, and we know that like the VRP day is not a mechanism that's going to change someone's life, but it might make their day easier. They may actually converse with someone who says to them, and it's such a powerful form of advocacy, hey, you should jump in on this program. I was here on this day, as Marcus said, at the start. I was here, 8 months ago, and now I'm here, I'm living here, I'm working here. And then that encourages that person to jump in there, and actually that's what makes the difference. So we also, I guess, sort of really taking stock and going, that's the most important thing we're doing is actually getting people from point A to B. The relief stuff is awesome, but it's a means to actually getting them to that. So just making sure you kind of understand where your value is, what your value creation is, and where it actually is as well.
I feel like it's such an important lesson in that, like just a pure business lesson, that it's like you can often get caught up in just trying to go big, but inevitably you've got to have this kind of weight, or like, as a founder or like founders in a business, you've got to have this kind of skill set of being able to weigh both of the two up between, well, we don't want to grow at the expense of quality, right? And we never want to do that. But we also have to find the right amount that we can grow while maintaining the quality, and it's kind of this balancing act the whole way through. And I feel like that's just scale, like that's if you, like it makes sense now that we're kind of saying it, but I feel like that's like the most important thing is like, obviously being able to and that's so difficult, I've got to point that out. That is so difficult to actually do that, because it's like, we're humans, we're emotional, we want to go bigger, we want to do more, and so on. Well,
it's funny you say scale for us is almost balancing the scales, like at all times. Like that's the most important thing, is to making sure that they're harmonised and synchronised. So, that'd be my sort of sentiments.
Yeah, amazing. Anything you want to add?
Oh, yeah, and scale, in terms of impact for us, doesn't necessarily mean more stores or, around the country or anything like that. It comes through retail partners, getting more people involved in the program and talking about it and providing opportunities for young people. So for us as a business, it's not about, taking over the world with the brand as such. It's more about, getting more people involved in the program and, showing that any retailer can provide these opportunities.
I feel like our listeners, this is going to be such a different conversation for them.
Yeah, cool. That's good.
I think it's because just showing, because again, like, business can be this thing where you're just chasing growth at all costs, and you can lose touch of the impact that you're trying to make. And every business, when they start, I feel like is trying to make an impact. Everyone has an idea, and everybody's trying to make an impact. But I feel like that can get lost a lot of the time. So I just feel like this conversation is going to be such a different one for them to hear, because of what you guys are doing. So it's quite amazing.
Thank you.
All right,
it can be richer. Like, I think, like, work, you may not be richer, but you may also, but like, life is richer. Like, that's one of the biggest things as well, is that, like, just embedding something small just makes such a difference in terms of getting out of bed, makes it that much easier. We still have days you don't want to get out of bed, but you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a little bit easier for us though sometimes when you don't want to, than someone who doesn't have that, in their lives. And that's one of the biggest benefits.
So there's like a last kind of topic that I want to cover after this, but I think that's like a really good point that we can kind of stick on for like a little bit. But like what advice do you give founders around that? Like making sure that they stay in touch with that side of their business, and understanding what kind of impact they want to make in the world.
Yeah, good question. I think it's like, for us, when it doesn't feel like work as well, you know what I mean? Like, that's something you hear a lot, but and you have those moments, it's not just sort of like, under no illusions, and I'm not trying to portray this picture like it's not all sort of, rainbows and whatnot in this world. It's still a real grind and a real challenge, but I think I just say that I think it makes those challenges more like palatable. Like, that's the thing, is like, you can often overcome that adversity or ride those waves just because you've got a bit more wind in the sails, and that's something that is a benefit of engaging in it in the first place. Is I just think it does make, when the going gets tough, just that little bit easier. For all parties concerned, and like, I think case in point would be what we've just all experienced the last 2 years, how hard it's been to be motivated to do your work and to be in different environments and isolated and everything else. It's still really challenging, like, for us, but I think it just wasn't as challenging if there wasn't something happening for others that you're doing. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, we keep on going on about it, but it's like, you just have to do something for one other person. Like, and that there's a ripple effect there, you know, there's that whole pay it forward notion, whatever. But I think it's just priding yourself on like those small gestures, and they do add up. And if everyone was doing those, like, we would be in such a greater society. And I think that's kind of what we like to always impress the people, is like just doing something small. Start small. Just how can you incorporate things into your everyday life? How can you be a more conscious consumer? And then the rest will sort of happen, you know, without being too fortuitous.
Yeah, like individual responsibility, right? Like I feel like that's huge. Like we underestimate as humans what impact we can make from these small gestures, and those small gestures comes from taking individual responsibility.
Yeah, well
just
put.
saying, well, like I can do this.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe I can, you know, it's like, I remember like there was a point in my time where it was like little things like, okay, always putting something in the bin. Yeah, and that was something that for me helped me even just progress as a person, was like, okay, always putting something in the bin. And it sounds so small, but like I was like, like nothing I would like, you know, and like, you know, like a car, something might fly out of my car and I'm pulling over and going and grabbing it. And I just feel like that individual responsibility can often have that ripple effect in you know, then there's many different of tasks or little things that you can do that can obviously have that ripple effect.
Well, homelessness, like case in point, like the school lesson you used to have was, you know, treat others how you want to be treated. Like if we treated people experiencing homelessness how we want to be treated, it wouldn't be an issue, because we'd be treating it in the way that, you know, you're looking at something comprehensively. Like we all, you know, have goals, dreams, aspirations. You have to look after social, emotional, financial. Like if that approach was taken that we take for ourselves, for others, then we wouldn't have the issue. Unfortunately, there's a blanket that's cast upon, you know, this group. And here's the solution. And it's not a solution. It's not sustainable. Like, obviously the solution to homelessness, you know, on face value is housing. Absolutely. That's the most important thing. But people need to be able to sustain that. You know, people need to be able to hold down, you know, a job, to be able to pay the bills, to be able to do, you know, X, Y, Z. So just making sure we all kind of understand that the logic is, it's just not like a first step and it's done. The job's not done. It's an ongoing process and
commitment.
Exactly.
Anything you want to add to that?
Oh, just back on, you know, the founder situation. And if you're looking to get into something like this, yeah, as Nick said, it's not all rosy, you know, like when you're passionate about something like this, you're thinking about it 24 hours a day. And, you know, you want to know how you can make it better and improve it. And, so, like, you have to understand that, you know, if you want to do something like this and you want to be successful, like you have to put in those hours. And but you know, for us it comes back to, you know, our graduations every year and having the contact with the social impact team and the young people that come through the program and seeing their progress and confidence and self-esteem, you know, from when they start to when they finish is just, you know, mind-blowing. And that's sort of what gets you out of bed and keeps you going when times are tough, for sure.
And finding people who are better than you, like as you said, like that's probably the biggest thing is like, right, is just bringing in people like when you go to deficiency, bring in the people like, it's so much nicer to be told what to do versus being told, you know, you're the one telling, you know, like that's also just, you know, you've got to leave your pride at the door. Just, you know, I can do this and I can do this well, but we need this to be successful. Bring those people in, you know, be unashamed. You can't do it all.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I feel like, you know, when you're building, I'm reading a book at the moment, though, so I read 2 or 3 times a year. It's called Good to Great, Jim Collins, and
awesome.
It's kind of like, never build your business to be a genius with 1,000 helpers, because you'll always be the constraint.
Yes.
But I feel like that kind of sings true. The last question is, how does the everyday person, you know, the people listening, how do we change the stigma around homelessness? You know, like.
Yep. I think it's understanding. Like, so how do you change stigma? Is like. It's
and what's your message to people that currently have the stigma? Because there's no doubt that there's someone listening to this who has it, and they maybe just haven't created awareness around it. But like, how do we push the needle forward as an individual?
We had it, obviously, so like also not feeling ashamed and embarrassed by that. I think it's fundamentally reframing that no one is a homeless person. Homelessness doesn't define someone. It's a situation or a circumstance that someone can get out of, the right level of support, care, opportunity. Like, you know, that's what it takes. So we always talk about it's a person who's experiencing homelessness, and that's the most important thing to start. So you know, as uncomfortable as it can be sometimes when you hear someone say, oh, I saw a homeless person today, you know, not calling them out, but calling them in and going, oh, well, you know, if you think about it, actually, like, it's not really a homeless person. Like, you know, kind of you can frame it in a way that actually does something. So that's the most important thing. And then it's also just like, you know, taking a moment to actually look at what are some of the stats around homelessness, what are leading contributing factors. And it's, you know, lack of affordable housing, number one, family breakdown. It's not what people think it is. So it's also just kind of having a baseline understanding of what are the contributing factors, not being, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and I feel like that's something that I, even myself, have created a little bit more awareness just from understanding economics. Yeah. You know, like it's not easy. No. You know what I mean? Like, we live in a world where the cost of, you know, the median house price now is $1 million. Yeah. In Melbourne. It's like, that's ridiculous. Yep. And it's like, it's not easy out there.
It's not. It doesn't discriminate. That's the biggest thing as well. Like, homelessness does not discriminate. Like, we've talking to people who've been top end of town, big wig corporates, etc., and we're only all a couple of steps away from it. And that's not to put the fear of God into people. It's just to kind of impress it, like, and to humanise it. It really can happen to anyone. It can be, you know, and we saw in COVID as well, you know, family breakdowns or, you know, marriages that sort of, you know, and that can be the first step. It can then lead to sort of, you know, poor mental health. That can lead to something else. And so it's just one of those things that it's, as much as, you know, it's a challenge and it's growing. I guess on the flip side, like, there are some really easy things that people can do. And as we said, number one is actually language is so important. But also, like, I guess understanding the sense that you hear a lot of the time, and this is when we were sort of speaking early days, people would go, oh, like, should I get them something to eat, or what should I do? And for someone who's living rough, and we always said, like, the best thing you can do is just to ask, like, what can I get you? Versus kind of, you know, because you'd hear people go, oh, went and got the Maccas, and they just said, oh, I don't want it, you know. And I'm like, well, I've gone out of my way to get you Maccas. It's like, well, have a think about it for a second. If you were sitting there on, you know, all day in the same spot, and you've had 10 people offer you Maccas, and you've had it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, you don't want, you know what I mean? I feel ordinary after having my 24 nuggets after a night out. So, you know, it's just kind of also like just understanding that, like, you know, people have different needs, wants, etc. And that's something that we really like to impress, is like, you've just got to look at it at a case by case basis, one person at a time. And that's why we haven't seen wholesale change, because it is resource intensive, but at the same token, it's what yields the actual results. So I think, like, it's just, for us, if more people knew the stats and the reality of, you know, of homelessness, even that would be so significant and profound. Yeah. And some easy things that they can do, and it's just language, as I say, to start with. You know, reframing that, because if we saw people as people, you know, as I said, and treated people how we want to treat ourselves, then, you know, we would be in a far better place, we think.
Yeah, just education and understanding. And actually interviewed Maya, one of our alumni, just recently, and she put it really well. She said, you know, tomorrow's not promised. You know, it could be your brother, your sister, your mum, or your dad. So it's just really important that we support each other, and that was really hit home for me as well. You know, like, you know, it could be anyone. It could be a friend, partner, whatever, that might go through something terrible, and you know, situations and circumstances don't go your way, and it just can happen to anyone. And it's really important that as a society we are supportive of each other and get around each other more.
And can I plug a tactic that we're doing right now that's happening on April 20, which is Youth Homelessness Matters Day. Again, we didn't know it existed, you know, a couple of years ago. But for us, you know, Youth Homelessness itself, we've got a big goal to get 28,000 people to wear a hoodie on Youth Homelessness Matters Day on April 20 to recognise and symbolise the amount of young people who experience this issue. And that's for people who are the ages of 12 to 25. But youth homelessness itself is 1/4 of the homeless population. So it's, you know, 25 and under. So it's massive. Like, it's getting worse. So for us, like, that's something, a direct tactic. If there's anyone who's listening in business, we're trying to recruit businesses, individuals, etc., to either buy a homie hoodie and wear it on that day, or to make a donation and wear your own hoodie, and that's being split between ourselves and another fantastic charity called White Line that's working with young people as well. So for us, it's like, this is our first step, is just trying to put some scale around it and show people how big it is. And then our goal is every year to be able to sort of bring people on a journey to understand more and more about leading causes, what are some, you know, factors that we can, you know, impress right now that can make a difference, etc. So that's hoodiesforhomelessness.com.au.
April 28th, did you say?
April 20.
April 20. All right. So for the next month, we'll put that in our show notes. Awesome. So send us the details.
Fantastic. Afterwards. Thanks so much. Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
No, of course. Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes for the next month. Awesome. So amazing. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that in terms of?
No, I think you summed that pretty well there. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Cool. So Quickfire now. So we're diving into Quickfire. So some. As I said, we'll preface this because I don't want you guys to think that you can't speak for a certain amount of time. Like we've had people come out and be like, say 4 words, and you know what I mean. But awesome. So what we'll do is I'll ask a question and you both can answer, one at a time. One piece of advice for your younger self.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, coming back to that notion of you can't do it all. I think. When you start something, you're really passionate about it. It's your baby. You have this vision, but it's really important learning for me, especially. And still learning. Is not trying to take on everything or try and do everything and bring people in that are better than you. And that's sort of that's been a huge learning for us and for me personally to let go and get other people involved and use other people's skill sets that will help benefit the business and the community. So that's been a big learning for me, and over the past 5-6 years for sure.
And it's such a hard dynamic, I reckon, as well, especially in business. Like when you start a business, you kind of have to throw it all on your back and just go. But then, like as you start to get a little bit deeper into it, you start to realize that collaboration is so important to actually taking that next step. And it's a skills thing, right? Like you're like, no, like the technician in you says, do it all. But then as you kind of grow, you have to learn the skill, okay, to include other people and give other people responsibility and kind of have that open-minded, mentality to kind of how you do things.
I think still learning this one, but I think it is, sometimes putting yourself first, like making sure that you're in a good place before overcommitting to something. I think we're still learning that, or personally am as well, just that balance. So I just wish kind of like, as much as you have the passion and you just got to make sure that it's sustainable, because otherwise, obviously, like if it's not, then it's a fad, etc. So I think that's something for me is like just always doing that sort of like sense check and making sure that like, all right, I'm in the best place that I can be to make sure that I can continue to give, etc. So that's something to say. It's to tell my younger self, but also continually telling myself as well.
Oh yeah, that's an entrepreneur's. That's the curse, isn't it? 100%. I'm feeling that one. All right. So one piece of advice for people that are looking to start a business.
Yeah, I think just feeding your curiosity, like just being curious about like what gets you up in the morning, what fuels you, what nourishes you, and just feeding that and asking questions, why is something a certain way? Why isn't it this way? Just, I think that's what's got us to this point as well, was literally just being curious and feeding that. So you're not having to have a set plan and a business plan from day one, but just kind of knowing the realm in which you'd like to kind of operate and then just start asking questions.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just having a go, like I said before, because you never know where it might take you. Like even before we went out and spoke to people living rough, like I'd spoken about it, for 6 months prior, and it was only because one of my other housemates, said, "Come on, let's just go and let's just do it." And so it's about just jumping into something, and you never know where it might take you, because there's so many ideas out there, and you always hear people saying, "Oh, I've got this idea, I want to do this," and nothing really eventuates. Like I'm the same, I do it all the time, but
half the time I'm saying, "No, we don't do that."
But I think if you just just have a crack, and and you never know where it might take you.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so what's the most important trait that you think a founder must have?
I think you hear it all the time. Resilience, absolutely. Like it's not a straight ascension up the mountain. It's there are constant setbacks and challenges, and you just have to be resilient to those. It's about being able to pick yourself up, obviously, and understanding. I think like I say like resilience, but I also something I tell myself is like no matter what happens today, like the sun's going to rise again tomorrow. I know it sounds really silly, but it's also like reminding yourself of that, because sometimes it feels like this is just the worst day ever, and this is the last of it, and it's done. But the sun always rises, and that's something I think I again impress upon myself a lot, because otherwise you just pack your bags and go, it's too hard.
Yeah, I think on the path of business growth, today's problems are yesterday's wishes, right?
Yeah.
Like if you've got a business and it's growing, like, you were wishing for this a year ago,
That's
2
right.
years ago, right? So, and perspective, kind of what we talked about earlier, like there are, as a founder, and there are other problems out there, and I think finding perspective in those and is something I always try to do as well.
Yeah, it's hard to go past that one. Obviously, like, communication's really important and something that we've learned along the way, and you can never like overshare too much. I think as the team's grown, up to close to 15 odd people now, and everyone's different and working together, and I think working on those communication skills, especially for me, has been a huge learning, and really like oversharing and getting people involved, and so things can't be taken out of context, and I think that is like a huge part of my learning at the moment as well.
What do you so that's a huge one. Like I feel like it's massive communication. When you learn that not everybody's the same as you, that can be huge. I want to pull on that string just a little bit. Like, what advice would you give a founder around communication then? Like, how does on an individual level do you navigate that? Like, is it a self-awareness thing? Is it, is there certain things that you went away and learned? Like, how did you kind of navigate that yourself?
Yeah, well, it's just the more people that have come into the business, like everyone, is different in the way that they approach things or even hear things, so it's important that we've really, explained a lot of things and really, gone into detail about why we might doing things, because I think we've sort of mentioned ideas at times and then not given the reason to why we might be doing things, and that sometimes can be taken out of context or misconstrued. And I think it's just important, like I've learnt to like really overshare and really give people as much knowledge as they can, so they can understand why we've made this decision, or why we want to get involved in something, or I think that's been like an important lesson for us.
And investing in the people as well. Like I think sometimes it's so much easier, like, I could just do this, but it's actually like, for longer term, I shouldn't be doing this. It's making sure that you can, you walk alongside that person and you invest in people, it's at the expense sometimes of your time, but ultimately you're buying yourself time in the future by doing that. And that's something that's just so important, is making sure that you just can't spend enough time investing in your people, because that's ultimately going to unlock you to be able to be focusing on what you need to be focusing on as well, which is what's the best interest of the business.
And allowing them to make mistakes, right? Instead of kind of coming down hard, like getting in behind them, like, it's sometimes like mistakes will happen, but the progress and kind of that kind of mentality at the start buys you so much more time in the future, because as time goes by, like in a year, if they can learn from that experience instead of that being traumatizing, you're going to be in such a better place as a company if that happens across the board.
For sure. And we talk about, with our young people when we approach our program, we meet underperformance of curiosity. So someone was late today, like, what were the barriers? Not you're late, this is, unacceptable, X, Y, Z. It's actually going, what were the contributing factors? What are some things, what are the barriers, etc. And that just completely changes, perceptions and how people see things. Like it's amazing when you actually ask those questions versus making those judgments.
100%. Last one. So we're on a journey at the moment. This is very new, but we're on a I guess one of our missions is to create the best diary that a founder could have. That's something that we're trying to do. So I'd love to get your kind of quick take on if there was one thing that you wanted to include in a diary that you don't see included as much for a founder, what would it be?
It's fucking hard.
Not putting you on your spot or anything.
No, I mean, sorry, language there as well.
No,
I think it's just like, it is hard work. Like it genuinely is. But at the other end of the coin, it's amazing. And it is really, it's effort based. So I think it's just, you just can't be under any illusions. Like it's amazing sort of in theory, but in practice, there are challenges, and just like kind of impressing the reality, because you don't want people to kind of like go in and like completely deterred. It's like, yeah, it's hard work, but you can do it. Like that's probably what I want to really say as well. It's awesome. Welcome to the trenches. You know what I mean? It's almost like an invitation, like you're here, you're part of us, but you're in the trenches now as well, and we all feel those moments. So I think that's probably like, it's that spirit of like, you're not in isolation, and that everyone's feeling those things you're feeling.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe that daily, line or a quote of inspiration to keep you going through those tough times. And, when you wake up, check your diary and, there's some something there that triggers, as to why you're getting involved in this and why you keep pushing through. Something like that, would be nice to wake up to, I think.
Yeah, amazing, awesome. Well, thanks for that, because as I said, it's new. We've chucked it in, but it's something that we're looking to do.
Awesome.
To kind of, for me, it's cash flow. I feel like having like a weekly kind of thing that I can just write down and look back upon. Obviously, you've got your profit and losses and your kind of real numbers heavy things. But if it was just like something there,
consistent,
that way you could consistently look at, in relation to goals, but also reflective as well. But awesome.
Love it.
So now it's we're about to finish up, so I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for coming on. I just want to say pretty eye-opening for me, seeing how much of an impact that you guys are making, but also just the story behind it and kind of the I guess the mission that you guys are on. I just want to say, it's awesome, and for anyone listening, I hope you can kind of draw some inspiration from this, but also make sure you kind of follow these guys and just get on the back of it, because I think it's just so important. But where can everyone find you? What are the things that you've got coming up? Just like absolutely everything and anything, chuck it in.
Oh, pleasure. Thanks so much for having us. It's awesome. I think it's for us, it's a really lovely moment again, just to take stock. And it is like almost a moment of gratitude to kind of appreciate, how far you've come as well, and to reflect on that, even though there are, daily pressing challenges as well. So thanks for having us and the opportunity to do so. I think, the biggest thing right now, obviously, our website, following us on Instagram, but homie.com.au. And then the campaign itself, we would just love any and everyone to get on board that. To be wearing a hoodie on Youth Homelessness Matters Day. So it's homie.com.au/hoodies for homelessness. So number 4, not FOR. So jump on that, sign up, tell your mates, family, friends, whoever. Boss would be awesome, and wear a hoodie on that day.
Yep, awesome, amazing.
Yeah.
Once again, guys, a big thank you. Donnie, thanks for putting this together, my man.
Thank you, Donnie, appreciate it.
And to all the listeners at home, again, just want to say a massive thank you to you guys. You are the reason we get to do this, and your support has been overwhelming over the last couple of months. So keep at it, because we need it. But yeah, a massive thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're golden, baby girl, we're golden.